young founders doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be young at age. It's probably more of like the experience out in the market, probably even now coming out to start on your own business and all that. So without further delay, I'm just gonna start running the slides and everything. Okay, hang on. Sometimes this is a
You are
problem.
showing the whole screen.
Yeah, I know. That's why this stupid Microsoft is always like that one. Let me just stop it for a while. Yep. Are you guys able to see it now?
Yep.
And right, this is a full screen. Okay. So I think let's just quickly start the whole entire introductions and everything. Probably some of you guys already know me. And my name is Paddy Tan. I'm the managing partner of Blackstone Consulting or Blackstone Group. This is my email address. No, if you want, you just feel free to take screenshots or whatever. Otherwise, you know where to get me. Okay, so in the next 45 minutes, it will be a lot more of a sharing about how to sell. So let me just do a very quick introduction of everything, anything. These are some of the partners that we work with. If you're from Entry Wars Hub, then you probably don't have to scan these QR codes. But if you are not, please feel free to do so. On the left is our LinkedIn page, and on our right is our WhatsApp group. I always advise anyone who comes to WhatsApp group, always set it to mute. Otherwise, I'm going to be quite noisy about it. So similarly, in these sessions,
Sorry to interrupt, Paddy.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt, but I cannot see the QR code because I think so the slide is not moving, or it's just showing the main slide.
Oh, is it? How about you
Yeah.
guys? Is it moving?
No, it's not.
No. It's frozen.
It's not.
Maybe you reshare.
Now okay.
Yeah,
And then
now
make
it
it
is.
full
Now it is.
screen. Yeah.
Hang on. Yeah, probably at night. You just off some of the other things. Okay. Hey, thanks for reminding. Let me just try it again. Okay. I think you guys can see. Can you see the screen moving now?
Yes.
Yes,
Can
yes.
you make it full screen?
Yeah, I'm gonna make it full screen. So let me know whether is it moving. Is it moving for you?
No.
No.
No. Interesting. See how come it doesn't move. Okay. How about now? Anybody can see anything? No.
No.
No, it's not moving.
Not moving,
No, it's yeah.
And now it's now you can't see the whole entire thing, right? It's supposed to go full screen.
I think you may just have to do the slides manually.
Yeah, it seems like. But you guys can't see me, right? Can you see me on the video? No, right?
Yeah, we can see
we
on the
see you at the top of the screen as well.
Oh, okay, see me, but somehow then let's blame it on Microsoft. It's easier. Okay, so there's nothing I can do. Was practicing and practicing was doing okay, but looks like now it's not doing well. This is okay.
And
This
maybe
is
you
not-
click the view to hide the view. Can you click?
Which one? The view here?
Yeah, that on the here.
No,
The
actually it's
sidebar.
Yeah. Just try it out and see what's going on. This is pretty quite standard. How about now? Can you guys see anything? No, not moving, right? Okay, then I tell you, let's not waste time. Otherwise, this should be good enough for most of you guys, lah. But you can still see the screen, but on the side, right? Am I correct?
Yeah.
Okay, can thanks. Okay, anyway, yeah. So I'm just gonna start all over again. So, well, let me see. Anybody coming in? Okay, nobody should be coming in. Okay, okay. Sorry about that. Always some technical issues or all this nonsense. Okay, okay. So let me just quickly start off since I was a couple of minutes already. So my name is Paddy Tan. I'm from Blackstone Consulting. I'm a managing partner. This is my contact. So yeah. Thanks to Entry Boss Hub for giving me the opportunity. Partly it's also this record is going to be offered over to Entry Boss so that the content materials will be freely available to anyone who join the group, whether it's on LinkedIn, if it's on the left side, or the WhatsApp group on the right side. Okay. I also appreciate that probably if there's no urgent matter, probably you can also mute yourself. Then no, so that the whole entire sharing would be uninterrupted. Of course, I need to mention my name, my company name also. So Blackstone Consulting, we actually offer a couple of these services. I'm not going to write through one by one because this is not supposed to be an advertisement. We have office in Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and also in Taiwan also. We are part of different groups of companies where we actually spread quite a fair bit of in the Asia region. Blackstone Consulting, aside from the earlier slide that you saw, we also focus a lot on process consulting, consultancy, as also corporate innovations. We spend a lot of time bringing clientele from overseas to Southeast Asia. Those particularly, especially companies like from Taiwan, China, US, Korea, Hong Kong, to land in Southeast Asia. So this is also one of our focus. So okay, let's kickstart how to sell. Today's the next 45 minutes I'll be covering on this how to sell. But as you guys will probably know, a lot of so-called tactics and all this is not just a single tactics that actually teach you on how to sell. In fact, there should be a combination, and this also goes down to what fits you better and what fits you not so better. Because I think when we come to talking about selling, there's quite a lot of difference between you selling as a hired employee versus you selling as young startup founders, which earlier on I mentioned it's not about your age, but it's more about the experience. So I will jump straight in about what's the differentiations between selling as an employee, selling as an owner. Okay. So now let's take a look at the agenda. The agenda is actually quite straightforward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It can be considered as quite theory based because ultimately selling is not so straightforward as I tell you how to sell and then you just follow and just run with it. It's not. Okay. So that's why number one, introduction, high level, what is selling? Okay, what is sales and everything. Number two, understanding your product and market. I think this is very important because if you do not know how to sell your company, your product, or which are the market to target, you'll probably be wasting a lot of time. Which is why a lot of our startup founders, the number one mistake that they always make is that they always want to have the perfect product before they go down to the market. And when that happens, the market may not be there for you anymore. So that's why I always encourage companies, founders, and all that. Don't really have to wait for a perfect product because there isn't any perfect customers out there. Okay. Crafting your value proposition. I think this is also very important because what is valuable to you may not be valuable for someone else. And what is someone that wants to pay for it may not be something that you want to sell. So there's always a bit of a balance that we always have to have, especially when you're running your own business. Because if you're working for someone else, the company set a certain direction that you need to sell A for X dollar, B for X dollar. You can't really have much choice but to follow instructions and then to continue to sell. But however, when you're running your own startup, that's a very different thing. Because as an owner of the business, you can control what define values. And also at the same time, how do you position your company, your values, your product, the pricing and all that. So there is a big difference between running your own business. Okay, number 4, building relationship and trust. When it comes to selling, as I mentioned, well, some people buy it because they like you. Some people buy it because they need the product, and some people buy it because they trust you. So there are always different ways of building relationship and trust, which I'll cover a fair bit of it later. Number 5, sales tactics and strategies. Okay, I think this is basically the whole entire core of how to sell, because there are so many different types of tactics. Well, we are not talking about tactics that are not related to what you want to do, but it's more of like there should be certain theories behind and certain ways that you can probably strategize and position your company or your products before you sell. Okay, next, closing the sales. How do you close the sales? Okay, so some of these are actually pretty much theory, which I will definitely won't cover page by page, because otherwise it's going to be a very boring session. Okay, first and foremost, let's look at this slide. This is very important. Why is selling important? Okay, why is selling important? I mean, I'm not going to read word for word, because almost everyone can read. Quite straightforward. Selling, in other words, is actually in exchange of money, transactions, and then of course, at the same time, so you want to grow your business, build relationship and naturally have a profit on it. But what about if you're talking about selling in terms of as a startup? Okay, so here on this page 8, at the top right corner, you can probably see the numbers running. When you're talking about selling, why is it important? So as a SME, MNC, any of the companies that you are an employee yourself, these are usually the reasons why selling is important. It starts from revenue generation to pay your salary, to pay for your medical leave or whatsoever, even to do market expansions, create brand awareness and stuff like that. Okay, of course, there are also things like economic impact and personal development. Okay, but what about here? Okay, you may want to take a look. Okay, why is selling important? Okay, why is selling important for startups? Okay, so you look at it. When we talk about why is selling important for startups versus the earlier page. Okay, because when we are talking about why is selling important for startups, there are a few things that are actually very similar. So, an example, no one should set a company, especially a profit-driven company, not to generate any revenue. So sales is primarily the source of revenue for most startups, in fact, for most companies. Why? Because we got bills to pay, people to hire, software to buy. So this is quite straightforward. But what makes it a bit different here is that when we talk about sales, everyone, as long as you're one of the founders, or you're the only founders, or you're co-founders, you always know how to sell. Honestly, there's actually no excuse that said, I'm a tech guy, I'm a product guy, I'm an ops guy, so I do not know how to sell. Selling doesn't mean that you have to sell externally. You also must have the skill set to sell internally. Okay, because the definitions of customers may not necessarily mean that it has to be customers that are externally. You can also talk about your customers, your internal customers. Maybe you're a CEO. So how do you sell the idea to your COO? How do you sell the idea to your CTO? So very similar. You probably want to understand their needs. We want to gather valuable feedbacks and all that. So when we talk about founders-led sales, internally, you are talking about your whole bunch of people that are working with you and under you. You must know how to sell to them. Okay, especially when you are talking about projects, that are coming, or you need to raise funds whatsoever. But also externally, when you are a founder, you go out to start to do selling, even if you do not know how to sell. It is also important because why? You actually have on the ground and talk to people directly about what works and what do not work. Especially when you have what we know as an MVP, which I later will cover. Especially if you are talking about a very new product, you may not get customers, but at least you should get users. So when you're the founder yourself, you should approach everyone as if you are trying to sell them something, and then get their feedback, because their feedback can actually help you in terms of your product developments, whether is it in stage 1 or stage 2 or down the road. Okay, so that's why founders-led sales are very different when compared to when you're working as an employee. Another reason why market understanding is actually very important, because why? If you are someone who's just starting to run your business, you cannot use a lot of assumption. lots of people use assumptions. So when it comes to assumptions, I always create a lot of problem. When we talk about assumptions, okay, one of the biggest problem that a lot of people always have is that my product should be something that a lot of people will want it. Why? Because I talked to 10 people, and these 10 people came back to me saying that, oh no, there is definitely a demand and I will pay for it. But maybe of the 10 people that you talk to, 2 of them are your parents, 2 of them are your in-laws, 3 of them are your best friends, and then some other strangers who do not know what the hell are you talking about. You know, you just want to get rid of you, and they will say everything, anything that you want. So that's why it's important to understand the market, because if you do not understand the market now, by the time you come out with your product or your services, okay, which probably will be much later, the market may not be there anymore. So that's why it's always good, okay, to understand what is the market about. Okay. So now, another thing, if especially if you're a startup, startup simply means that you probably may not have the kind of connections, the kind of network that the big corporates may have. So this means that you may probably be starting from ground zero. So when you're talking about ground zero, shouldn't you prioritize relationships? Okay, I think it's very important, because a lot of people keep thinking that selling means that I'm selling a physical product or selling a services. Well, in a way it is, but I think a lot of people buy because it goes beyond buying features and buying the functions of the product itself. Sometimes people just want to support you. Sometimes they believe in loyalty. Sometimes to them it's like, hey, you know what? Yours may be a bit more expensive, but you get everything done for me. So I think building relationship is very important for a startup. And most of the fundraising, okay, and also even most of the sales should not be talking to somebody you do not know. In fact, you should actually start off with building good, strong relationship, so that you get referrals, word of mouth, okay, or even for all you know that you can actually sell to other startups. And it may not necessarily have to be using money to do transactions. Sometimes you can say, okay, let's say I'm an accounting firm. Okay, I'm okay to take about 5-10%, okay, of the of the work, and I want to take this 5-10% work for someone else, but in exchange, I probably get something back. So that's sort of like a barter trade. And when that happens, which actually I witnessed a lot. When that happens, you can actually build a lot of relationship, especially where a few different companies, few different startups, somehow, somewhere they tend to start around the same time, and they barter trade with each other certain services. Like for example, get some advisors, and then in return, instead of me paying you money, I can actually do probably some light work, some accounting work for you. So you strike a balance, and then from there, you can actually bond further, and someone somewhere, someone can actually do a referral to you also. So that's why comparison between selling for startups, okay, is very different. Okay, another thing that one other thing that we have to understand, if you do not know how to sell, it simply means that investors may not invest in you. Okay, why? Well, the word investors is actually very understandable. What is an investor? Someone who invests in you. If someone who actually give you money and do not expect returns, well, that's probably a donor. Okay, but when we talk about investors, they definitely need you to make money from them. So some investors, they have a certain mandate that if I were to invest in you, probably within 3 years, 6 years, 5 years, whatever, I should have a 3x, 4x, 5x. So that means that if I put in $1 today, I should be getting back $3, in the next few years. So there's a saying: those who can't sell, you can't win. Because if you are not able to sell, it simply means that you're probably not able to generate profit revenue to your company. And for that happens, you'll probably be looking to trying to get grants, trying to get money, and then but in the end, your product still doesn't sell, your service still doesn't sell, so your company can't grow. That's why it is always very important that you must know how to sell. Okay, because if you do not know how to sell, investors won't come to you. Okay, another one, this is actually quite straightforward. I think it's quite known. If you have a very well-defined sales strategy, okay, it actually helps you as a startup to prioritize your effort and allocate your resources effectively. Sad to say, most of the founders, most of the startups tend to do too many things. I know it sounds a bit oxymoron. They tend to do a lot of things, but the problem is that when you do a lot of things, but if none of these are giving you results, it's as good as not doing enough, okay, in the correct direction. So I always suggest from your sales strategy, instead of trying to define it who to sell, why not you start off with defining who you do not want to sell. Okay, because once you do that, okay, it's easier for you to filter and for you to zone down on exactly what kind of effort should we have. Let's say example, you're a Singapore-based company. You say, hey, you know what? I want to sell to someone that is in New York City. Okay, so now we are in the month of December, and we are talking about time zone different. Okay, so question like, you know, are we 12 hours different or are we 13 hours different? What is the time saving? And if it's like 9 p.m. now, then there'll probably be 9 a.m. So question here is that, can you actually provide good enough support? So there's always a thing that I always ask, some of these founders say, yeah, it's always good if you want to sell to a country or to a market where there's a higher currency. So that's why I always encourage some of my mentees from Malaysia, from Thailand. I say, hey, you know what? Try to sell to Singapore if you can. Time zone difference is only probably 1 hour plus or minus, because the same effort that you sell may probably give you 3 times the rewards if you're talking about Singapore to ringgit to Sing dollar. And if you're trying to sell to someone else, and if you are trying to do too many things and you're not able to, to provide the right supports, eventually they will drop you. So it is better to define what you do not want to do so that you can get a more well-defined strategy on how to sell. Okay. Yeah. So number 2. So just now we talk about introductions. So now I'll jump in. I will go a bit faster. Okay, because a lot of these are theory, but I think theory is also as important. You probably be reading, as I mentioned, product market fit. Okay, the definitions of product market fit say it differs from one person to another person. Okay, why? Let's say, for example, if I talk about, hey, iPhone 16. When I talk about iPhone 16, so there are variations of iPhone 16. But the question here is that, what defined as a product market fit of an iPhone 16 may actually be different in different markets. Okay, let me give you an example. In certain countries, okay, to buy an iPhone 16 will probably cost averagely, okay, a normal, a common employee, probably 1 week or half a month's salary. We are talking about actually using full cash to pay. Okay, then you may think, wow, is that all? Some of us may probably take a month. Some of us, may probably take 6 months. It depends on where are you from, because of the cost of living are very different. So let's say if a phone is $1,005 US, okay. So for some markets where your average salary is about $5,000 US or $4,000 US, that will probably take you 1 or 2 weeks. But then again, there are also others who probably take about 6 months of their salary in order to pay for iPhone 16s. So that is what I meant by a product market fit. It doesn't mean that, okay, when you're trying to run the startups, straight away you think, hey, you know what, I'm going to sell $100. Let me go straight to this market. Well, you have to understand, when you talk about product market fit, does it even fit? Because if it doesn't fit and you force it to be fed together, to fit in together, then this is where you probably end up going to burn yourself, and you're going to probably burn a lot of resources that in the end, the markets are not able to absorb, or the markets is not willing to pay for it. Okay, when we talk about PMF, it occurs when the startup products, you can probably read from there, meets the demand of its intended market. The key word here is intended market. And then you can lead to customer satisfaction and sustainable business growth. So just imagine, okay, if your product is priced at $100 US, and then you go to a market where the average spending for the kind of products that people are buying are probably maybe a fraction of it. Then in this case, then you have to ask yourself, are you going to go in as a premium product? Why? Because I always joke about this Prada versus Bata, BATA, okay, versus Prada. People who go to Prada to buy, okay, it's not that everyone can just walk in, just buy, and then just forget about it. Because there are also customers who actually save up, and then they go to this place and buy that pair of shoes. Nothing wrong with it, by saving up. But there are also this same group of people who walk into a Bata shop without caring too much. They just want to buy a pair of slippers, and then that's it. Okay, so that when we talk about product market fit, it doesn't mean that Bata, okay, as a low cost, or I call it budget, okay, doesn't mean that they are only targeting at people who can afford only their slippers. but cannot afford buying another pair of slippers from Prada. It may not be, because there are always people who are able to patronize these two shops. So now when we talk about product market fit, it simply means that who are you trying to sell to? Because if the market does not allow, or even not able to provide you sustainability, you're not able to sustain, then you're probably going to face a lot of problems. So which is why some of the markets that you go in, you may not have to sell your latest product. You can always sell your older, your inventory whatsoever, and then test the market, and then let's see whether does it work or not. Like one of the examples that I always like to provide is that using iPhone again. If you want to sell into a market where the average spending is higher, then probably your marketing dollar is not as high. But if you are going to go to some markets where the average spending is much lower, and then you are trying to target probably only a small percentage of the people, to buy your products, then question that you have to ask yourself, how much marketing dollars are you actually going to spend to reach this smaller group of people? So you have to strike a balance between what is a product market fit for you. Okay, I covered this already. Identify target customers. My style is that I try not to read from the slides because honestly, you read from slides, it may be just easier for you just download and then read on your own. I'd rather give you a couple of other examples. Okay, identifying target customers is never easy. If you're running a startup and you just started not too long, always have the three groups of customers. Okay, the first group of customers are probably those who will buy because they know you. Okay, is it wrong? Is there anything wrong? Nothing wrong. My take is always sell to people who already know you, because once they already know you or they have know you as a person and you know that they have some needs, because you can actually get a lot of feedback from them. Okay, once you get a lot of feedback from them, then you decide to go to the second group. When you go to the second group, then you ask yourself, is this first group the kind of customers that can actually sustain my business? Okay, most likely the answer is no. Because they know you, they probably buy it from you, but you may not be able to sustain your business just from this first group of people. So this means that you have to go to the second group of people, the people who do not know you. First group is people who know you. Second group is people who do not know you. Okay, people who do not know you means that they actually buy based on your products, based on your services. Okay, that is where the clear definitions of what does your customers is, what do they want to buy? Who are they? All your W's, what, where, when, how, why, and all this plus a H. Okay. Then the third one should be customers who actually get influenced by the first group and the second group. Okay. So what do I mean? Customers, which is the third group, okay, they may have probably heard about it. They may probably saw somebody use it, and then they actually create a sort of a viral or word of mouth. This means that your product actually do bring values to the people who use it, whether is it group 1 or group 2. So that when they see it, they say, oh, wow, actually I heard about it, I know about it. And it simply means it should be good. So let me try it out. So I think when you first started as a startup, try to target these three groups. Start from the first one, people that knows you. Second, customers or people who do not know you. And then the third is those customers who actually know the group 1 and group 2, and then they learn about your product. So why is this important? Because you see, the thing is that when you're selling a certain products or certain services, the target customers should not be defined by you alone. You should actually go up, because we are all buyers. When you're running your own business, you're running your own company, you always tend to be buyers. Nothing wrong with it. It's also because of this biasness that drives you to where you are today. Okay, either you go up or you go down. So I think it's important, because why? Customers grow up. Okay, when I talk about growing up, it can be a lot of growing up. It can be something that they may need yours at this stage, but probably may not need your service at the later stage. Because why? Maybe their business grow. They need more powerful system. They need more features. They need more functions. Or maybe there are customers who do not need to pay so much for the features or functions that you're providing, but they do not need, and they need to downgrade. So try to identify as fast as possible the kind of target customers that you have. Okay, understanding customers' needs, I think nothing much need to cover here, since I already mentioned quite a fair bit earlier. Okay, define value propositions. Okay, it's not so simple. When we talk about, like an example, like here on the notes here, we talk about clearly articulating how the product solves specific problems or fulfill needs. better than competitors is essential for establishing PMF. Honestly, it's not something they can just define overnight. You really have to go down to the ground, talk to people, probably get slapped a few times, get negative feedbacks and all that. And then eventually you decide, how do you really define your value on this? Because the definitions should change over time. When you first started, your definitions of this may be ABC, but eventually as your business grows whatsoever, you should actually relook into it. Okay, why? Because if you don't relook into it and you just are fixed, or probably even fixated with whatever that you're offering, when the competitors come in, you may not actually have time to evolve. Okay. MVP. Okay. Simply means, what does the MVP means? Okay, as the definitions of minimum viable product. The keyword here is not minimum. The keyword here is viable. Okay, a lot of people get confused. When they talk about MVP, they always think that MVP doesn't mean that I give the minimum features, give the minimum functions, and then I go and try it out. No, it's not. Okay, because what is minimum to you may be maximum for others. What is maximum for others may be minimum to you. So in other words, when we talk about minimum viable, the word here is viable. It has to be something that your target customers, your target audience wants it. If it's something not viable, then it's not viable. So there's actually no minimum or no maximum. My take is always, if you're really going to go out to the market, first and foremost, identify who are your customers, who are potentially your customers, define it first. Okay, and then zoom it down on what is actually viable to them and what is not viable to others. Example, like now, here in Singapore, it's hot. Probably for a couple of weeks ago, everybody was talking about raining, and everybody was like, oh my God, there's a lot of places there's probably, at the risk of flooding and all that. So if you have a MVP, okay, and probably maybe some shoes, some plastics that you can actually help them to cover themselves up so that when it's, when the rain comes, it may not be as, they're not exposed to the rainwater, not exposed to the flood or whatever. Yeah, but here's the thing, is it viable? Then you have to ask yourself, then you got to test it out. So do you test it when it's flooding or when you test it not when it's flooding or when it is hot? Like now, if I were to do an MVP now, okay, well, it has been pretty hot these few days. If I were to push it up, it may not necessarily be viable to them, but we are talking about the same product. So certain MVP may be suitable for certain environment, certain situations, certain circumstances. So identify that first. Okay. Okay, how to identify target customers? Okay, there are a few tactics here. Okay, or what we call is an ICP. Okay, ideal customers profile, and of course, understanding their point, their pain point. We got a couple of ABC here. Conduct in-depth customers interviews, analyze customers' data, and of course, you create a persona. Okay. Again, I won't read the whole entire thing. I think most importantly is that, as I mentioned earlier, define what is your kind of customers. Okay, because once you're able to define the kind of customers that you're targeting or the kind of customers that you do not want to target, okay, then from there you actually go down, go deep in onto their behavior, and of course their unmet needs. So it can be a lot of times, you can be spending a lot of time trying to identify who are your customers, and then of course at the same time try to engage them. Trying to engage our customers is never easy. I'll be very honest, it's never easy because you first and foremost, they must be willing to talk to you. You may have identified them, but they may not be willing to talk to you. And you're also worried that if you corner them, they may actually give you negative feedback. And but if you don't corner them, you may not be able to get enough people to give you to fill up the statistics, to fill up the numbers. So this is the part that always have to be a bit careful. Because sometimes your interviews doesn't mean that you have to stand in front of them, give them a whole list of questions, and then ask them. It may not be. Because when we talk about interviews, what does interview actually mean? Meaning that you are probably asking a set of questions, someone give you feedback, and then you analyze from it. So there are a lot of ways to conduct in-depth customers interviews. Example, like I always do, or even for us Blackstorm, we can actually break up the so-called interviews into a series of simple questions, okay? And you can actually ask them over a period of time. So you identify different types of customers, you ask them very simple questions break it up, and then when they give you feedback, and then eventually you assemble them together. It is a lot of effort, but it's better to target the right customers that give you the feedback, and then from there you analyze, rather than just go out and try to spray and pray and hope that something will just come back, and then based on data that is actually not relevant or information that is actually not relevant. Next, analyze customer data. I believe if you have bad data, it means that you're probably going to come up with a very bad outcome. So a few things that I always like to focus. The patterns in the demographics. I think it's very important. Just using just now the iPhone 16 as an example. If I were to go around asking the same questions, whether is it in Singapore or in other countries or our neighbor countries, whatever, I can ask the same question. Will you buy another iPhone 16? Let's say a very simple question. Will you buy another? Okay, the keyword here is another. So if I were to do it here in Singapore and I'll do it in other markets, I think the answers will be very different. First and foremost, the answers I can assume that most likely they will probably look at you as like, I don't even have one. How in the hell am I going to buy a second one? The kind of stuff. But you'll be surprised. If you ask some business folks, okay, whether is it in probably the markets or countries that are a bit more affluent, it's quite common for people to actually have 2 or 3 phones. Okay, so when you ask them, will you buy another iPhone? So if you were to ask the same question in different places, for all you know, the answers may actually be very different. So this also gives you a lot of data that you can actually analyze. Same questions, but different answers and probably different reaction also. Okay, I won't go into deep. There's quite a lot of things are actually quite straightforward. Okay, persona. You probably can see the bottom one. I always like to use this Chinese working moms with credit cards. So let me give you an example. So during the COVID period, when they first started, a lot of us are not quite sure. We're not quite sure how long is this going to last and stuff like that. But in fact, I was actually quite excited about it because I was thinking of, hey, you know what? Let's stay at home, keep ourselves safe, and then hopefully by the 4th of May, because that was what the Singapore government was telling us, because 4th of May to be like, may the force be with you. I'm a Star Wars geek, you see. So I thought, hey, you know what? That may be quite a good time to stay at home and everything. And then after that, after the when we're out from the COVID, I can probably do a bit of announcement. Hey, I want to retire. I want to do a semi-retire, or stuff like that. But who could have thought it went on and on and on. It went from days to months. And some of our clientele, some of the customers came back to us and say, hey, Paddy, everybody is now selling online. We are trying to do the same, but we do not know because why? Everybody is at home. You are stuck with the screen. Zoom came in, a lot of things came in. I do not know exactly who are the people that I'm trying to sell to. So we created a detailed customer's persona. And in the end, it boils down to this. Okay, Chinese working moms with credit cards. Okay, is this a race thing? Answer is yes. Okay, why? Because when they were trying to sell certain things, this is just an example of a persona. When they were trying to sell something, okay, they were trying to target the moms who actually is the gatekeeper of buying everything that's healthy, everything that's Chinese herbs and everything. So naturally, it has to go down to this persona. And after spending some time, we managed to identify Chinese working moms with credit cards because first, it's targeted at Chinese because of herbs, Chinese herbs. I'm not saying that other race don't eat Chinese herbs, but if you're talking about Singapore, the population tend to be higher. So since everybody is online, it means that it should be a mom who is a gatekeeper and buying Chinese herbs, but at the same time with access to credit cards. So this is one of those persona that you can actually target at. Okay, mapping. I think this is quite straightforward. You need to know their pain point and how your products can actually address it. This is quite standard. Okay, value propositions. This one I'm just gonna just jump straight into it. Okay, how to create. First and foremost, you need to identify your customers' needs. So earlier on, we were talking about identifying who are your customers. Okay, so now you need to identify their needs. Different people at different stage, whether is it gender, okay, race, at different stage of their life, they all have different needs. Okay, so for example, if you're targeting, let's say you happen to be a salesman to sell a car, then now you got so much options, EV, non-EV. Are you selling a big car, small car? What is a big car? What is a small car? The definition will probably be very different. So this is where you try to identify what are the customers' needs. Someone who is single may probably not be buying a car that is deemed as a family vehicle. Okay, but yet at the same time, this single person may also be the target customers for a family car, because why? He has parents, and parents are probably aging. So it depends on what kind of needs are we targeting at. And this is where how you craft out a much more effective value proposition out. Okay, articulate unique benefits. I think it's quite straightforward. Of course, communicate. I think this is very important. These days, you will realize a lot of people like to use big words. Okay, when you use big words, it may be impressive to some, but if it's confusing to others or confusing to most, then I could say that your sales skill is actually, should improve a bit more. Otherwise, if you try to use big jargons and all that, well, it may be good for you, for your ego, to stroke your egos and all that, but it can actually confuse a lot of potential customers. Trust. Okay, well, bunch of words down here, but bottom line here is actually very simple. If our startup founders, be humble and build trust. When I first started my business, what I always like to do is that whether it's in networking sessions or in any of these other sessions, always tell them that you just started your own business. There are much to learn. And would it be possible if you can share with me, how you got where you are today? What are the things that you do not do? What are the things that I should do? Something like this, a very simple questions, and then get them to talk a lot more. And so this is also where how I use the tactics of to build a long-term relationship. Because when you ask them questions, okay, well, unless it's sharing nonsense, otherwise a lot of people with a lot of experience, they could have filtered out, okay, what to tell you, what not to tell you. Because if you position yourself and you tell them clearly who you are, what you do, and all this, something like, let's say, example, hey, I'm 45 years old. I just got retrenched, and I'm out here networking, and I'm trying to figure out what I need, and it boils down to maybe three things. And out of these three things, one is actually probably selling insurance. I'm not quite sure when we talk about selling insurance, should I be targeting at life insurance? Should I be targeting at non-life insurance? What do you think? Something like that. So when you ask very simple questions, but this means that whoever, let's say we are talking about veterans in insurance agency, or setting up, running all this, he or she will probably maybe try to recruit you, but at the same time, after you share this information, they may be able to filter it and then come back to you and say, okay, this is what it is. This is what you should do. This is what you should not do. And this is actually where you build trust, because you're willing to share your vulnerabilities to others, and others are actually able to help you. So this is also one way of building, relationship and trust. But of course, I'm not asking you to go around telling others, all your top stories and all that. But I think you just be tactful, be smart about it, and to build good relationship. I think this is important. Okay, tactics. I covered a fair bit already. Open and honest communication. You show appreciations. If it's, I think, something that's a bit lagging, nothing to do with Gen Z, Gen X, or whatever, boomer, whatever. I think if you get help, there's a lot of ways to show appreciations. Why? Because when you get help, okay, whether is it free help or is it paid help, whatever, by showing a bit of appreciations, people actually remember. So that next time down the road, when there are people who actually come across something and they remember that you did ask about it, you can actually create a circle of trust, and you can do a lot of sharings, or even like, for example, you attended, an event, a networking sessions, and somebody said something interesting, and that may be something that trigger, and you find, oh, well, this is interesting. Go to LinkedIn, find the fella, send a message and say, hey, thank you, for all the helps and everything. You'll be surprised. It can actually becomes, he or she can probably be your product ambassador also. Sales tactics. Okay, so now we come to number 5. Okay, so here's a very interesting thing. When we talk about sales tactics, take note, sales tactics doesn't mean that it has to be one. Okay, that means one method works today and the other methods doesn't work, and therefore you just follow these particular methods. No, it doesn't work this way. In fact, if you are introvert or you're extrovert, I think it helps by observing what works for you most comfortably first, and then go into what you are most uncomfortable. Because when you're talking about selling, whether it is selling in-house or you're selling internal, external, I think most importantly is that you must understand that more tactics is good for you to know. but it doesn't mean that you have to keep yourself into only a single tactic. Okay, I'll jump in a bit later. Cold outreach versus warm leads. I think this is just more of a definition. Best practices for reaching out to potential customers, or there are good and there are bad ways of doing things. Leveraging digital tools and using platforms like LinkedIn for lead generation. I think it's quite straightforward. Okay, now let's just jump in. Sales tactics that work. Okay, again, I'm not going to read everything to you, but in terms of theories, okay, these are the few. From value-based to being a consultative, okay, these are even SPIN, a lot of big words later I explain, or challenger, or even snap selling. Okay, you can combine and you should combine. But first and foremost, understand what are these first. Value-based. I think the word itself, you should know that if you want to sell something, you must make sure that first and foremost, there must be a value to your customers. Okay, a lot of mistakes that a lot of startup founders always make is that, yes, you may have a pain point yourself, and therefore you started this business, nothing wrong. But you cannot assume that everybody has similar pain point as you. And you cannot assume that your pain point, okay, is something that you build a business around it, and therefore you solve your pain point. But others should also follow you, and therefore they should buy your product or services. Okay, I know sounds a bit confusing. Bottom line here is that your pain point and others' pain point are probably very different. Because at the end of the day, how do you really deliver your real values? Okay, may not just be talking about emphasizing about features, or may not be talking about just pricing. Okay, first and foremost, value itself is defined differently by everyone. So therefore, it is important to know exactly what is value to you and what is value to the customers. Because if it is important to them, they will pay for it. If it's not important to them, they will not pay for it. Simple as that. Okay. Okay. This is basically you're an expert. You have your attraction, you have your experience, and you have shown it. And this also means that your potential customers will be able to ask you questions, and then you also further you can ask them interesting questions, and then this is where they will probably share with you their needs. And this is very important because why? Especially for people who so-called been there, done that. When they become an authority, when someone comes to you, you can just tell them, yeah, you should use my product, you should use my service because of various reasons. Okay, this is actually very much more important to a lot of others because why? You are the expert in the field. Okay, the other one, quite straightforward. SPI, situation, problem, implication, and need. Okay, basically what you do is that you start off with conversation. Okay, sales tactics, there are many types. Okay, my tactics that I always like to do is I like to combine. I like to combine SPI, and I like to combine this one. Okay, so why? Because sometimes when you talk to certain people, you do not know where is this going to lead to. Okay, I don't encourage salespeople who always say, you know what, I want to start off with a certain conversation and I want to end it in a certain way. That is provided that you know exactly what you are talking about, and it's provided that the other party do not know what they want. Okay, sad to say, usually this kind of relationship will not last long. So I always like to advise others that it is better to identify, through a conversation, start with simple discussions, talk to them, get them to chit chat with you. And then also, it doesn't mean that you have to do it in one session. A lot of salespeople always tend to think that I have to close this deal, or at least I should get this person interested in this particular session. If you are in a networking sessions, you're in just a very simple, events and all this, you probably only have about 5 minutes. How can you just try to get the fella to to be convinced in 5 minutes? Well, if you are great in closing sales, then power to you. Otherwise, for me, I like to spread over a period of time, because if you do not know their needs today and you do not know their needs tomorrow, what you are trying to sell may probably not able to address exactly what he or she needs also. Okay. Okay. I don't really like this type of tactics, the challenger tactics. Okay, challenger selling means that someone actually challenge you or your existing belief. And sometimes some salespeople actually went overboard while they are challenging you. Sometimes they talk down on you. Okay, and this is especially on the B2B environment. When they talk down on you, it makes you feel like you're stupid. Okay, so I personally feel that if you try to position yourself as an alpha, and then try to position others, your customers, okay, as someone who are clueless and everything, eventually they will find out, because come along the way, if someone who is actually not challenging, as a challenger selling, but someone who is actually coming in as an empowerment, then eventually they may actually go to your competitors rather than go to you. So try to have a mix of all these relationship, build a relationship, a trusty relationship, a trustworthy one. And then this is where you can do your selling. Okay, another one is also very common, snap. Basically, you communicate in a very simple way, okay, to help to facilitate decision making. Okay, but you communicate easy, but I let the person try to encourage the person to make a quick decision. These don't usually not for very complicated product or complicated services. Okay, invaluable, meaning that position yourself. Hey, you know what? Actually, I know my stuff, and I'm actually sharing with you, and I'd like to help you. And of course, you need to align. If somehow, somewhere, for a certain environment, like example, you go for an exhibition. If somehow the exhibition is about electronic products, then you probably know that the person actually has some needs. And from there, you actually try to align what you're selling to the person and eventually to help the person also. Okay, of course, you need to prioritize. You focus mainly on the most critical issues, okay, to create a certain urgency and relevancy. If you notice a snap, it's actually a bit of everything that I just shared earlier. So these are all the sales tactics that you can actually put in together. So what about strategies? The strategies is what I've been saying verbally just now. That means in a certain way, you can actually look at who are you trying to target, and then you try to align. Okay, my take here is my advice is also to whoever that you're going to meet up with, whether it's your friends, a client, a potential partners, or whatsoever, spend at least 10, 20, 30 minutes trying to find out, what kind of status are we in today? Maybe we are meeting the person in the cafe, maybe I'm meeting the person in in a restaurant. So the kind of are you trying to sell him things, or are you trying to do certain things whatsoever? So if that is the case, try to spend at least 10, 20, 30 minutes to find out exactly what is the outcome that you want. The outcome doesn't mean that it has to be a sales. The outcome can be he or she get comfortable with you, comfortable enough for him or her to ask you questions later, and then you do an opening. So never try to close a sales and then don't get pushy about it, because once that happens, the entire thing just shut down on you. Cold leads, very simple. Okay, meaning that there's actually no interaction with your brand, no interaction with you. They are unaware of you. Okay, this is very difficult. Okay, so that's why for me, personally, I try not to make sales through cold leads, because the effort to put in is a lot, and more than half the time you probably get it wrong also. Warm leads. Okay, warm leads means that someone who actually already know you, preferably if they can endorse you. So if they can endorse you, probably already know what you're doing, what you're thinking, I think that actually helps you a lot. So that's why you will notice a lot, those are very good salespeople, whether introvert or extroverts, they attend a lot of networking sessions. Okay, and they get very comfortable on how to communicate. Some of them, let's say an introvert, they may not necessarily communicate in a very loud way, and very verbalize everything. They may probably be those who actually communicate in a WhatsApp, in a chat group, and then they talk from there. So there are also a lot of ways, to make people comfortable with you. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, if you want to take screenshots, just go ahead. You have not. But these are the few tools. These are the few tools a lot of companies or individuals actually uses. I'm not going to go through all this. Quite straightforward. Each and every one of them have their plus, and each and every one of them also have their minus also. So it really depends on what you need. My take here is that if you want to be a very good salesperson, really know how to sell, you need to use one of these tools. Use the free one first, okay, and then figure out what style is yours. Because without able to track what is going on, there's a very high chance that you can actually have very good leads, but you did not follow up, or leads they are not there yet, but you fail to grow them. So Ansana is actually a very good tool. Slack, definitely. Canva. Some of us are very bad in designing. This is actually good. A lot of so-called drag and drop. A lot of offers and everything. QuickBooks. Not a lot of people are using it, but I mean, in this part of the world, I love it because it helps you in a lot of tracking your expenses. and a lot of other things. Okay, these are a few tools. This one, interestingly, is that if you ask around, a lot of Singaporeans do not know how to pronounce it. Okay, but here's a very interesting thing. This is a very powerful tool. It's a really, really powerful tool. Because if you have raw material, not raw material, raw data, okay, some of us are actually more visual creatures. So if you want to put things together in a certain perspective, see the market trends and everything. Yeah. Okay. Okay, buying signal. I think it's very important. After all the engagement, after all the talks and all the things that you have done, the first thing that you always want to make sure that at the end of the day, where do you stand? Is someone going to buy from you? Is someone not going to buy from you? Okay. The last thing that you want to do is send a text message and say, hey, you know what? When are you going to buy? I think that's if you caught the fella at the wrong time, okay, then it's one of the biggest downside. My wife actually shared with me this very interesting incident. It was many years ago, when people are still using dot metrics. So there's this sales guy who called the customer and told the customers that his printer is damaged. Okay, that means this sales guy called the client and told the client that his printer is damaged. And naturally, the customers was like, okay, so what happened? How come your printer is damaged? So the sales guy said, oh, no, actually, printer is not damaged. Just that you did not send your PO over to me. It's a pretty lame joke actually. But you think about it, it's also a way, to test out the water. And then both of them laugh. And somehow 10, 20 years later, I'm still telling the story. It is such a simple way of of engaging your customers as a joke. And then then you want to test whether do you actually have any buying signals. It's kind of lame, but it works apparently. Okay, so one thing that we always have to recognize are buying signals, asking about the products. That means that they ask about the function features, or even asking about things like, hey, your current version versus your future version. When are you going to launch your next version? Which is why some of the problems are that a lot of brands these days, every year they launch one particular model, and sometimes they when they launch it, it's not on a fixed date. Sometimes they launch it earlier, sometimes they launch it later. And then you may probably resulted in groups of customers who do not want to buy the latest one. So they rather wait for you to launch the newest one, then they can buy the older version at a cheaper price. So this can also be one way of identifying, is this some buying signals that others may have. Body language, I think this one is quite straightforward. You need to practice a few times with different types of customers, see their body language. So if they are a bit defensive, they avoid your eye contact and everything, then you probably want to give them more space, more time for them to decide whether if this is something that ultimately that they want to buy from you. If it's not, then you probably want to walk away. Case studies. Okay, I think this is important. When some of our clientele are from overseas, especially those that are from non-English speaking countries, when they want to enter into Southeast Asia, where we help them to scale their business, the very first thing that I always ask them is that, first and foremost, translate all your case studies into English. And then from there we study, and then from there we break it down, and then we target the different audience. Why? Because case studies that you build up in the market that you were already selling or already operating, to you is not all the relevancy is there. But however, when you go to another market, it may not be. So that's why for us is that we always ask our clientele to make sure that their case studies are translated properly, and then we try to fit in. So this means this is also the same thing. If somehow if you were trying to sell something, but your case studies have no relevancy to them, you're actually wasting your time. And there's a very likelihood, most likely, the other party won't be very interested in what you're doing. Okay, peer involvement, I think this is quite straightforward. Okay, I won't cover this. Competitor research, I think this is quite straightforward, especially when you do comparison. As much as I hate it, but this is also very effective, especially when a potential clientele asks you, so your product versus the other company's product, what's the difference? That kind of stuff. For me, I will never go in and just compare apple to apple. I rather turn it around and say, very simple. Because if I were to try to talk down on my competitors, and my competitors will be, of course, doing the same. At the end of the day, if this person who actually asks you to do a comparison, okay, he or she will probably already have some needs. If the needs had already been met by competitors, then I don't think we even have this conversation. So most likely, these customers of mine or potential customers will probably want something out from me that my competitors are not offering. Maybe a lower price, better warranty, that kind of stuff. So always be a bit careful about, when you talk about competitors, because when you talk shit about your competitors, it may actually, open yourself up to your customers saying that, oh, wow, this guy's not that ethical, not that, nice, not the kind of stuff, you see. Organizational changes. We are not talking about, reorg, whatever. We are talking about sometimes come to a new year, or there will be a big announcement. Companies may say, hey, we are acquiring these particular companies. We are shifting our priorities. We are trying to create a new market. So from there, read the news, sign up to the companies' newsletter, especially those listed companies. So at least study all of them. And if you find that it's overwhelming, then subscribe to ChatGPT, whatever. Just throw the PDF, throw the report, and then ask a few questions. And then from there, you probably give you some signals of when they will be buying and when they will not be buying. Okay, this one is quite straightforward, positive responses. I try to go a bit faster, but without sacrificing it, because as you all know, earlier on there were a bit of hiccups on the sharing portions. Okay, so quite straightforward. This is an effective closing tactics. Okay, there are a lot. I'm just going to run through very quickly. You can also read it through. Again, there should not be one way of closing a sales. Okay, let's say, for example, you don't want to assume everything and then just based on this, to go out and try to close this. One thing for sure is that you can always ask questions as if the sales is already yours. Because sometimes when you ask the customers, even though they may not have decided on you, but they see that you're already very supportive, it can actually help them to believe that, wow, this guy actually already go all the way up to help me, even despite me sending an invoice, or even despite I sign off, the purchase order whatsoever. Okay. Soft close, and of course, the urgency. Now or never may or may not work for some clienteles, but I think you have to do it with a pinch of. Have to be careful. Have to be careful, because sometimes you create urgency, and you come up with time limited offers and everything. It may be suitable for some some sales, some numbers for you to hit, but I think similarly you may also get yourself into trouble if whatever that you said didn't come true for whatever reasons, even though you may not be lying. But if you create, the perspective, you create the kind of scenarios that they may think that you're actually trying to corner them, that may actually blow up, and then it can actually create a lot of problems. Soft close, I prefer this. Ask very simple, gentle questions to see whether are they interested or not interested, without adding too much pressure. But at the same time, I also like to do this. Okay, I like to do the sharp angle. In the sense that you turn request for concession into closing opportunity. Sometimes they ask for more things. For example, we got a couple of clients. They came to us and say, hey, you know what? This is my budget. This is what I can do. Can you do something? So you can actually turn the concession saying, okay, instead of X period of time, X numbers of things that I need to do for you, why not we close it now and then you still get this, something like that. That can be one way. Okay, this one is a puppy dog close, but some people don't really like the name. Basically, it actually allow your prospects to test the product to increase the desire to purchase. So this is your 30-day trial, probably test drive the car or whatsoever. But somehow they call it puppy dog. Okay. Take away close. Okay, that means that you remove an option or benefit to create urgency and prompt action. This is not easy, and you also have to know how to execute it properly, because for all you know, some potential customers don't like it when you try to sound like a threat to them, and you take away certain things, they may actually just walk away. For example, people like me, I don't like take away close. I can see when someone is trying to do that. So to me, it's that no, if you try to remove it and try to force me to act on it, I'll probably just walk away and then that's it. So and usually I won't come back. And I don't mind buying from another fella, which is actually more expensive, because I just don't like the way that things are being brought onto me. So naturally, I try not to do this on anybody also. Okay, next one, visualization, close. Basically ask you to visualize the benefit. Okay, you probably seen some of these are show, some of these are movie, whatever. There's always some sales guy put a hand on your shoulder and try to tell you, Mr. So and so, imagine, okay, no, you have a car or something like that. No, you're on a 4-wheel drive. You drive like an F1 driver. You're skinny. You've got long hair. The kind of stuff, you see. So people tend to buy into all this when they try to give you a picture that's probably far from truth. Okay, few more to go. Opportunity cost close. It means highlight what you will lose by not making a decision now. A lot of pressure selling. This is what I call as pressure selling. Things like promotion is only another 24 hours or another 3 hours. Then they keep sending you messages, keep sending you texts and everything. Okay. My last one is also interesting. You basically make a surprising statement at the end of the conversation to ignite interest. So saying something like talk halfway and then suddenly just throw something. Usually come with a certain incentive, and then you get the people to wow, okay, that's interesting. But you probably didn't give any timeline whatsoever, and just say take it, because some folks will take it as if you make a decision now, whether I give you 2 days, 3 days, it doesn't matter, because if you don't make a decision, whether 2-3 days later you still won't make a decision. So some salespeople will actually think of it this way. Okay, so if you are young founders, okay, try to understand how all this works. Okay, if you're not quite sure of the exact example, well, of course, if you're a very visual guy, then I would suggest copy the name, okay, the title, whatever, go to YouTube, paste on it, and then just put the word example at the back. So there can be thousands of kind of examples. Let's say opportunity cost close. Okay, then now go to YouTube, put it behind, put the word example. And then they can probably show you quite a fair bit. And then you find out which one are you most comfortable with. Okay, my suggestion is go for the one that you're most comfortable with to learn first. Okay, but practice the one that you're most uncomfortable with. Okay, why? Because you are very comfortable with, you don't want to get stuck with it. And then once you get very comfortable with a certain way of doing things, and then you probably just keep doing the same, you may probably eventually hit a situation where there will be some customers that's a bit more difficult to handle, and you may not be able to do any other ways other than those that you're already very comfortable. Okay, conclusion. Well, we ran out of time because I started a bit late. Okay, why am I using the word introvert or extrovert? To be very honest, sales, it matters. The problem, I mean, for my 30 years of running, startups and advising companies and all that. I started my first company at around age of 17. I'm 49 now. So yeah, about 30 years. Okay. A lot of startups actually fail. Partly it's because of the founders. They are very good in certain things, but somehow, somewhere, they're not good in selling. And a lot of people who are not very good in selling, they may be an extrovert. Okay. But the sad thing is that, which from my experience, okay, is that a lot of them are introverts that they do not even know that they're actually uncomfortable with selling. Not even selling externally, but even selling internally. So I think it's important if you're able to master sales, okay, that will be actually very, very good for you. It doesn't mean that introvert means that you're always by yourself, don't do anything or whatever. I think that's not. But instead, you can actually turn this into a strength. Certain introverts have certain attributes, certain skill sets that others extroverts may not be able to overcome. Like for example, role playing, you may be able to define the kind of scenarios and then remember or even able to play out exact situations that you want, exact steps that you want. Or even some of the introverts are very, very strong in rehearsing pitches, able to come up with tens of thousands of questions, tens of thousands of answers, and then they're able to counter it. Okay, and of course, gradually try to turn all this to engage your customers, your clientele, and build your confidence up. Because otherwise, the last thing that you want to do is because you keep telling the world that you're introvert, and then therefore, just because you're introvert, it gives you a free pass not to do certain things. Eventually, you will actually kill your own business. Okay. Well, of course, introverts, there are upside and there are downside, but also similarly for extroverts, you can read down here. I think the opportunity to learn is always there. A lot of extroverts like to learn new things, like to test things out, and but also at the same time, some of them can be, over extrovert. Okay, I call that. Okay, sometimes they get caught up with something so deep that they actually forgot that certain things still have to go back to the fundamental foundation or goes back to the fundamental. So I think most important is strike a balance. Don't go overboard and keep practicing. And I think that's good enough. And of course, last but not least, spend some sufficient time. Dedicate enough efforts into it, you can probably become something that's effective and authentic salesperson, regarding of your personality type. Okay. Coming to an end, take a look. Thanks for those who hang around. You may want to do a QR code scan or whatever, or just go to this particular website. This session is actually part of it is by Entry Boss. This is a hub. The other part of it is Startup Village. This is actually free. We actually haven't really rolled it out officially, so I want to take this opportunity to roll it out. Basically, it's an investor series. It's free. If you take a look, currently we've been testing it. Currently, we have about 68 learners. The whole entire durations of the programs, content, everything, should take you up to about 27 hours a day or two. Not a day. Nobody study for the whole day. Okay, probably spread over a week. And then videos, there are a couple of videos. And of course, there are also e-resources. So do share with your friends, your peers. Okay, I'm doing a sales pitch here. This is actually more to help companies, more to help founders. Investor series is actually another part of it. So take a look, sign up, and then if you feel that it's useful, if you feel that it's essential, then just go ahead with it. Okay, I'm just gonna stop sharing. Okay, and also I'm gonna stop recording. Partly it's because I think there may be questions that you may want to ask that may be a bit sensitive. Stop recording.